Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rich Man Quiz Show with today's theme on current initiatives in environment-related management accounting. I'm your host, Nur Iza, and joining me for today's sessions are the beautiful and intelligent experts, Aina Karinisa Shafika, Nadia, and Nur Amira Akila. The rules are simple. I ask the question, and if any of our smart experts know the answer, just press the buzzer. Without further ado, I will ask the first question. What is environmental management accounting? Now, who would like to answer? All right, Nisa, the floor's yours.
Okay, so let me briefly explain about what is environmental management accounting. So EMA is identification, collection, analysis, and the use of two information for internal decision making. So what are these two information? First, physical information refers to the data on use, flows, and eventual outcome of energy, water, materials, and waste. It is a non-financial measures and information such as the use of water to rinse out chemical tanks between product batches or fuel used to transport operation. Second, monetary information that include a variety of environment-related costs, earnings, and savings. This information is expressed in the term of monetary units such as expenditure on cleaner production, purchase cost of materials that eventually become a waste, and purchase cost of all natural resources. In simple words, EMA will provide to managers the management information. Management information included are identifying and estimating the cost of environment-related activities, which includes cost of reduction of pollution emissions, waste, material recycle and disposal, environmental management, and so on. Second, identifying and monitoring the cost of resources such as water, electricity, and fuel so the cost can be reduced. Third one is assessing the likelihood and impact of environmental risk to evaluate on how likely it is that the environment can be impacted to one or more environmental stressors such as climate change or disease. Fourth one is including environment-related indicators as part of routine performance monitoring to consider environmental compliance a business necessity. And the last one is benchmarking activities against environmental best practice that allows the company to compare their environmental performance and cost against industry peers to superior performance. Next is the purpose of EMA. First, to support the environmental protection via cost-efficient compliance with environmental regulation and self-imposed environmental policies. So EMA will make a plan and implement pollution control by investigating purchasing material costs that can substitute the toxic material and report the environmental waste to authorities. Second, to support the simultaneous reduction of costs and environmental impacts. So EMA will ensure the company to have more efficient use of energy, water, and materials in internal operation and final production. Third, to support the evaluation and implementation of cost-effective and environmentally sensitive programs to ensure that the company is in a strategic position for the long term. Lastly, what is the characteristic of EMA? First, to support the sustainable development by quantifying environmental impacts via identifying costs, savings, and risks and opportunities related to the operation. Second, seeks to integrate natural and social science, which means balancing the financial and non-financial skill. Lastly, demand the multidisciplinary approach which EMA will require from various specialties to address complex environmental information. That's all. Thank you.
That's 8 points for you, Nisa. So, we will now open the topic of current initiatives in environmental-related management accounting. As you can see, there are 5 initiatives. The second question is, what is eco-efficiency? Nadia, your hands must be itching, so how about you scratch that itch and tell us your answer?
Thank you, Iza, for giving me the opportunity to answer this question. To me, eco-efficiency means creating more goods and services while using fewer resources. In simpler words, it means doing more with less. In a situation where a company practices eco-efficiency, the company will work towards reducing their ecological damage towards the environment to a minimum level, while still maximizing their efficiency. The purpose of eco-efficiency is, of course, to encourage a company to be more environmentally aware and responsible, but at the same time still keep up with their profitability. Eco-efficiency also promotes the creation of value in a business through the use of technology and changes of process, with the aim of reducing the resources used and environmental impact through products and services. Next, I'm going to list 4 elements of eco-efficiency. Number 1, it will reduce the materials required in creating goods and services. Number 2, it enhances a material's recyclability. It means that they will work towards using materials that can be recycled later on. Number 3, it reduces carbon footprint. Carbon footprint, for those who don't know, is the greenhouse gases released due to our actions, and our actions in this case is the production of goods and services. And last but not least, it will reduce the energy intensity of goods and services. Energy intensity is the measure of inefficient energy in an economy. A high energy intensity means that it requires a high cost to convert energy into GDP. I have one last point to make, Izzah, if you let me continue. I want to explain 5 steps to achieve eco-efficiency. Number 1, we have to plan and organize the resources that a company is about to use. Number 2, we have to analyze the research object to identify the waste and its characteristics. Number 3, we have to propose multiple solutions or methods. After we have a list of possible solutions, we need to study the feasibility of each solution so that we understand the possibility of success. And last but not least, we have to choose one most suitable solution and implement the solution to the company.
15 points for you, Nadia. Now, which one of our brilliant ladies can tell us what is environmental life cycle costing? Looks like Aina's fired up, so dear, fire it away.
I would like to answer for the question on environmental life cycle costing. So basically, it is an accumulation of costs that derive from users such as research and development department and marketing department that involves in the product lifecycle. However, it does not only focusing on the internal users, but it also includes anticipated externalities to be internalized, such as the cost derived from anticipation on suppliers, manufacturers, and even consumers. Other than that, it acts as a complement to life cycle assessment. The ELCC should be regarded as supplementation for ISO 14040 and ISO 14044 life cycle norms, and it also relates to real money flow. Okay, so now I will further explain about the life cycle assessment that I mentioned previously. Life cycle assessment, or also known as LCA, is basically a method of estimation on the product's influence on environment and usage of resources in its life cycle. For example, it estimates the extraction of raw materials that we will use in order to produce a product. Like the ELCC or environmental life cycle costing, this method only estimates on the product's impact on the environmental without taking into consideration of the cost of the environment. However, there's a similarity between ELCC and LCA that both of the methods are not an accountancy method. We proceed to the steps of ELCC. The first one is defining the problem. The problem could be the increment of waste in the landfill. Second, defining the cost element. Third, system modeling. Fourth step, collecting data. Fifth, structuring profile cost. And lastly, assignment. Next is the formula to derive ELCC. The managers should add up all the costs such as introductory investment costs, installation costs, energy costs, operation costs, maintenance and repair costs, exploitation interval and production loss costs, environmental costs, and lastly, disposal, reprocessing, and reclaim costs in order to derive the ELCC. Are the example of ELCC. The first one is ecological tax, which is a tax that company needs to pay to the government. Next, ecological products commercial costs. Third, emission control expenses, which is the expenses that company incurred in order to control their gas emission. The fourth one is cost of waste disposal, which is the cost that the company incurred in order to manage their waste disposal. The purpose or objective of ELCC is to address all direct costs and indirect costs that involves in the product life cycle in the total cost of product. Example of indirect costs is the external costs that will potentially rise in the future, such as waste disposal expenses. Next is to reduce the total cost of product with the help of the eco-friendly alternatives, where instead of the company need to acquire a new raw material to produce a product, they only have to use the waste in order to produce a product.
Aina earns 15 points. But contestants, I'm sure your brains must be exhausted thinking about the answers. So how about you take this time to charge up while I give my 2 cents on environmental performance evaluation. What is environmental performance evaluation, EPE? Well, it is an internal management tool that helps to provide managers the information about whether or not the organization management system is performing well, and it helps to take note whether or not the aims of the environmental policy are being met or not. Next, it is also a useful auditing tool that helps to assess whether or not the environmental aspects, objectives, targets, and other environmental performance criteria are being met or not. And it is an ongoing process that ensures any changes to an organization, activities, product, and services that could change the environmental performance are being taken and accounted for in the organization EMS. What are the purposes of EPE? Well, it is to provide transparency about the aspects and the related environmental impacts. The environmental aspects is the interactions of the company with the environment, whether it's through their activities, products, or services. For example, discharge of waste to water, the gas emissions in the air, and the usage of natural resources. The related environmental impacts is the changes to the environment caused by those interactions, whether it's the good change or the bad change. For example, the discharge of waste to the water can cause water pollution, which is a bad change. Then the reason the companies need to reveal the transparency of this information is so that the EPE can be used as a benchmarking tool to see which company is greener. And so the company that is less green can follow the company that is more green to see what is the difference. And the other purpose is to demonstrate how an organization mitigates these impacts to improve performance over time. The better environmental performance can cause more advantage for the company, whether it's environmentally, socially, or economically. Steps of EPE. It is based on the guidelines in the ISO 14031 as applied in the ISO 14001. ISO 14031 used the plan, do, check, and act cycle, starting with plan, selecting relevant indicators such as the environmental performance indicators and the environmental condition indicators. And from those indicators, we collect and analyze the data, assessing the information, and reporting the results to the staff, managers, and external shareholders. And the last is the check and act step, which is review, check, and improve act the environmental performance. It also answers the question of, is the organization environmental performance improving over time? How cost benefit is the EMS process? Are the right aspects and impacts being addressed? Are the data sources and analytical methods appropriate? ISO 14031 provides guidelines on how to select the indicators as I have previously mentioned. The environmental performance indicators, EPI, have two categories. operational performance indicator, which relates to the performance of operation. It addresses the question of is the waste generated per unit of the production or the energy consumption? Is the raw material consumed include hazardous substances? The next is the management performance indicator, which relates to the management system. It addresses the environmental protection measures, the number of polluting incidents or breaches of the compliance which result in fines, damages, or increase of the regulatory inspection. As for the environmental condition indicators, ECI, it measures how the organization's products, service, and activities interact with the natural environment at the local, regional, national, and global level. For example, is the emission in the air have polluting or non-polluting odors that can cause nuisance to the local residential areas? Is the local water resource suitable for operational use? Will the soil degrade when the organization conducts any activities on it? Now, I'm sure you four already know what I will ask for this next question. What is environmental? Oh, hold your horses, Amina. Let me finish my question first. What is environmental supply chain management?
Sorry, Isa. I was just so excited. Okay, I just want to say that environmental supply chain management is a key part of sustainable business strategy. It covers management of all significant environmental impacts from our company supply chain throughout the life cycle of product and services. And I think the most significant impacts is caused by other activities outside our companies. Okay. I just want to add that I heard from this one business driver. She said that we cannot underestimate the importance of environmental supply chain management. This is because the company who has involved and experience in this environmental management have gained more shares, strengthened their brand, and become more attractive to their consumer and investor. Environmental impacts is any changes to environment that resulting from the facilities activities, product or services, or in other words is the effect of people action itself. So the below is the negative environmental impacts such as water pollution, air pollution, and toxic waste. So there are three objectives of environmental supply chain management. Firstly is to eliminate or minimize waste. Waste such as energy, hazardous greenhouse gas, and solid waste. Secondly, they will help organization to develop their strategy, which lead to have a high level of profitability due to reducing their environmental risk and increase their environmental efficiency. And lastly, it will make the company who have involved this environmental supply chain management becoming more environmentally friendly. Okay, next is about the development of environmental supply chain management. So firstly, we have to have engagement with supplier. Okay, why we need to work with supplier? Because we can identify the sources of pollution, we can implement the measures to prevent the pollution, and measures our environmental performance, improve them. Okay, so next, by applying environmental legal compliance, I know this one environmental principle in UL Global Compact. They said the business should use precautionary approach to environmental challenges. And lastly, we need to continuous improvement in our environmental management. Implementation of environmental supply chain management, I will give a first example on Johnson & Johnson. So Johnson & Johnson is the American medical device and pharmaceutical good manufacturer. This is also a rare example of non-tech or automotive company which hitting the high of carbon reduction. So while it has an external supply chain, it claims to be committed to ensure operation conducted on its behalf consistent with its values. So as participant of Carbon Disclosure Project CDP supply chain program, it has encouraged supplier to measure energy use, green emission, develop and report their reduction plans to public. So the second implementation of environmental supply chain management is on Walmart Supercenter. So for product sourcing, in terms of specifications, Walmart has developed sourcing policies, guidelines and position statement on such seafood, apparel, plastic packaging and others that require this product to meet certain criteria before Walmart decide to sell them. So in terms of certifications, Walmart have asked their supplier to validate the particular commodities. Okay, furthermore, certification also help to communicate to consumer that their supplier have met applicable environmental of certifying body. And lastly, it helps preserve natural ecosystem and improve livelihood. Okay, in terms of product and packaging specifications, Walmart have asked their private brand suppliers to work toward and to report the progress of their goal to use 100% of recyclable, reusable and industrially compostable packaging by 2025.
15 points for you, Amira. So let's continue with what is waste management? Isa, let's hear your answer.
Okay, now let me tell you what is the waste management. So it is the process and actions necessary to manage the waste from its inception to its final disposal. So the purpose is to provide hygienic, efficient and cost-effective for waste storage, for collection, transportation and waste treatment or disposal without polluting the atmosphere, soil or water system. So there are 5 R's of waste management. First, refuse. The company refusing to use single use of non-recyclable products to ultimately reduce the daily waste that produced by the business. Then reduce, limiting the dependency on the use of non-recyclable materials to avoid excess waste. Then reuse, items in the workplace instead of replacing them. Repurpose, repurpose involves some imagination or creativity to use an object for more than one purpose. And then lastly is recycle. A company can start by compiling plastic, glass and organic and implementing the effective recycling program. Furthermore, there are environmental accounting for waste management, which is first, accounting for direct monetary and physical flow information. The example of physical information is the quantity of waste like how much garbage waste is collected or landfilled. Next is recovery quality info such as how much is waste recycled after sorting at a material recovery facility. Then monetary info is cost and expenditure information associated with the physical waste flows and activities. Second, accounting for environmental information hidden in the overhead and future periods. So environmental costs are indirectly related to the operation of a process such as administrative support, legal service, fines and educational costs. Okay, the potential costs of in the future such as replacement costs, uncertain future remediation or risk posed by the future regulatory changes. Lastly, accounting for external environmental impacts of waste streams. So output from waste streams is borne by the natural environment. For example, the effect on human health due to air pollution or landfill disposal, which has the most serious environmental impacts. So this environmental accounting is generally intangible and more difficult to measure in monetary terms.
Lisa gains 15 points. Alright, let's crank the heat up with this question. What are the benefits and challenges of the current initiatives? Looks like Nadia might just beat Lisa's current high score. Please.
I have 3 benefits of the current initiatives. Number 1, it will improve resource efficiency. This is because we can create more product with less input. For example, we can create byproducts with excess materials. Number 2, it can improve a company's image. This is because consumers nowadays are more attracted towards companies that show that they care about the environment. Number 3, it will prevent pollution. This is because some of the excess materials will be reused and recycled instead of straight away labeled as waste. As for the downfall of the current initiatives, I have 2 to list. Number 1 is the most obvious, which is the cost involvement. This is because Such concepts requires extra costs to implement, such as the cost to recycle or the cost to properly execute waste. And these costs are assumed to not be important to the company as it does not directly affect the company. The second disadvantage of the current initiative is the lack of skilled manpower. This is because there is absence of guidance on EMA in the industry. Therefore, it is hard to find someone who can teach everyone else about the importance or the process of EMA. Since it is hard to find, it will be difficult or in some situations can be impossible to implement these current initiatives in the company. Am I right, Izzah?
Alright, Nana, you get 10 points. Now, we will open the next topic, which is Environmental Management System. What is Environmental Management System, or EMS? A framework that helps organization to achieve its environmental goals through the consistent review, evaluation, and improvement of its environmental performance. It can also be defined as a set of procedures and practices that enable the organization to reduce its environmental impact. The basic of EMS is reviewing the organizational environmental goals, analyzing environmental impacts and the compliance obligation, whether it's legal or other requirements, establishing programs to meet the objective and targets of the compliance, and also to reduce the environmental impact. What are the purposes of EMS? To reduce the organization's environmental impacts and increase its operating efficiency so that it will be more efficient, even economically. To assist organization address its regulatory requirements in a systematic and cost-effective manner, helps to reduce risk of non-compliance and improve health and safety by the practices for the employee and the public. To assist organizations address non-regulated issues such as energy conservation, and can also help to promote stronger operational control and employee stewardship. The question is, how exactly environmental management system is related to today's topic of current initiatives? Amira, you may answer.
So I can say that EMS can be related to EPA. So EPA is a Environmental Protection Agency, okay? So EMS actually is a set of processes and practices. So this EPA will continue this progress to develop and maintain this EMS at each office, labs and other facilities.
Amira, you just earned 8 points. Now we have reached the last question. So, who will give us the answer for? How are current initiatives applied in the industry? Okay, Aina, let's end this with a bang.
Let me try on the question of application in the industry. The first company is IKEA. It is known to all that they are an environmental concern company. The first product that they produce is an affordable sealable plastic bag that is made of 85% renewable materials from the sugar. They also launched a Towards Zero Waste for a Better Tomorrow campaign where IKEA view all waste as a value. They re-strategize on what material to choose, redesign, and only produce products that can be reusable, recycled, and reassembled. For example, their product named Glens Vibe, where 70% of its kit filling is made from recycled PET plastic. The second company is Nike, which is a well-known sports attire company. They produce a Nike grind by transforming manufacturing scraps such as rubber, foam and fiber, and even used shoes into new Nike grind materials. Next is their newly launched Nike Air Carbon series. They have collaborated with the New Lights technology to explore alternatives to its sneakers materials. In this collaboration, they have used the New Lights technology's product of a carbon negative bioplastic as an alternative to its sneakers material.
Thank you, contestants, for your answers and wonderful cooperation during this program. Now, I will reveal the winner for today's quiz. Ladies and gentlemen, the champion of the current initiatives of environmental related management accounting quiz is Nadia! Congratulations, dear, you are the queen of the experts, and so we will crown you the expert crown. Other contestants, don't feel too bad. You each have made this program a joy with all of your amazing answers. And so we have decided to give you three each a scholar tiara. And I will give myself a star for being such a good host. Let's give them a round of applause. That ends our program for today. Thank you for tuning in and see you next time.